M-1 Carbine. This is one of my favorite little rifles. A great part of history and just fun to shoot. Over 6 million of these were made from 1942 to 1945. The most produced U.S. weapon during World War II. Made by a number of companies, from Winchester, who designed it, to Rockola, which is a jukebox company, U.S. Postal Meter, Inland, Saginaw, just over and over. So many different companies, but these guns were just made to function and they performed well in combat. Now, John Browning's brother Ed was the inspiration for this rifle originally, and he died before it could really get into the final stages. Carbine Williams, which a movie was made about this guy that did a lot of work on the M1 carbine, but really was given a lot more credit than what he really did. Carbine Williams only designed the short stroke piston for the carbine. Really, the rest of the carbine was designed by Winchester and its engineers. Now, this is an M1 carbine, and it has the box 15-round box magazine, which right here is the release, and it can also take the 30-round magazine as well. Here you can see the straight-walled cartridge. The 30 caliber has been called underpowered, but it did exceed most of the submachine gun rounds, which were 45 9mm, and they were much more effective, but not quite as effective, of course, as the M1 Garand. It does have the operating bolt system, as you can see. Of course, the gun is unloaded. One thing you'll notice, this is a rounded bolt, and this bolt was really used on the M2s. The M1 was semi-automatic. The M2 is a select fire rifle that fires full automatic. While this gun is semi-automatic, and a lot of them are found with this round bolt, that is one thing about this. The M1 has a flat bolt. Now, to me, one of the most interesting aspects of the 30 caliber carbine was in its M3 version. And this was developed right at the end of World War II. In fact, it saw a lot of action during the Battle of Okinawa. And it was an M2, which was a select fire carbine, with an M1 infrared night scope on it. They were only effective out to about 70 yards. But during the Battle of Okinawa, the M3 took out 70% of the Japanese casualties during the battle. An incredible amount of damage done by such a anemic rifle. Has nice adjustments on the sights, as you can see, for windage and elevation. The front sight is a post with rabbit ears here to give it protection from getting bumped. Here's the bayonet lug as well. There were bayonets that fit onto these rifles. Now, the bolt hold open is this little tab, and you pull it back, push it down. Very unusual bolt open design. Here is the serial number, and also underneath here is who made this gun. This one was made by U.S. Postal Meter. But like I've said, there's a number of different companies that made these. GM, Winchester, of course, was the mother company and made most of them. Inland is also one of that made most of the M1 carbines. The two, though, that are the most sought after as far as from collectors is the Winchester and the Rockola. If you have one of those, that would be a premium for the M1 carbine. Not that it's necessarily any better, because these rifles just seem to function very well. All the parts were interchangeable, but those were the two that were the most favorite. Now, there were a number of companies that made these commercially after the war, and that was Universal made a bunch, Iver Johnson, and Plainfield. And to be honest, sometimes there's some that are good, but a lot of times they have problems with reliability. Now, here you see U.S. Carbine caliber 30. And this rifle, even though it's called a carbine, which most of the time when a rifle is called a carbine, it is a smaller version of a larger rifle. Now, the M1 Garand, this gun has only one part that'll interchange with a Garand, and that is this buttstock screw. Other than that, there is not any other interchangeable parts. It is a completely different weapon design. Now, I've always loved the M1 carbine, and my dad talked me out of this one a number of years ago because when he was in the Army, he was with a MASH unit. He carried one of the M1 carbines, and so he's always loved it. And so I gave it to him, but of course I can get it at any time and just love to shoot it. The reason for this design, though, was because officers, radiomen, medics, drivers, anybody that wasn't actually involved in combat on a regular basis, it was just really hard for them to carry the big M1 Garand, which is a really heavy rifle. And so these were designed so that these men could carry, these guys behind the lines, could carry a small weapon, and if they needed it, it would be much more effective than the .45 ACP. Which it was. And these guns were designed to shoot up to about 300 yards effective range. But to be honest with you, about 200 is about the best you'll get as far as effectiveness. They will reach out to 300, but the bullet drops very fast, quickly. But what probably put this to the forefront of making this rifle was because of German paratroopers and glider-borne troops. They could get behind enemy lines, and so the U.S. knew they needed a small rifle that could fit on the backs of most of the guys behind the lines, but if they were ever attacked, they would really be able to stand up and fight against such forces. The U.S. paratroopers, this was a very favorite rifle with them, and also especially with the U.S. Marine Corps. Now, the M1 carbine has suffered from high praise to a lot of criticism in the field, and a lot of times in certain elements, the M1 carbine seemed to be an ineffective round. But we've seen there's a lot of mixed reviews for these rifles, and the funny thing was they were used all the way through Korea, into Vietnam, and they are still being used today. In Israeli Defense Forces use these, their police security forces. In Brazil they use these, and in the Philippines. These are still very popular. Now, one of the problems that was found with the M1 carbine as far as extreme weather conditions was in Korea. And during those really cold winter months up there in the northern areas of Korea, the M1 carbine would tend to jam a lot, and it was not really adequate for extreme cold temperatures. So that is probably one of the only things that the M1 carbine, as far as its function, had any problems with. Now again, here's the little box magazine for the 15 round. This was standard issue with the M1. When the M2 was developed, the 30 round magazines were developed. This is an aftermarket magazine here, but there are still a lot of these magazines out on the market. Of course, here is an optional feature that I like. It's a mag pouch that goes on the butt of the rifle, and it holds two 15 round mags. And you can see the US markings on here. Just slides over, has a little brass grommet. Now I'm going to push it forward to show you something. Right here, and I'm not going to pull it all the way out, but this is an oiler, so you can take the sling, pull it off, and use this to oil your weapon. Has the metal butt plate as well, but these are very minimal recoil on these rifles, so they don't really need any kind of padding when you're shooting them. What was really cool was a few years ago there was a big influx of imports on these rifles, and especially from the Israeli Defense Force, and they were going for around about $350. Now those have dried up, of course, and these run between $800 and $1,000, usually at gun shows and wherever you can find them. But to be honest with you, they're well worth it. The Garands actually run a little bit more. The M1 carbine, it's a great self-defense weapon. Can be used just as a handy little lightweight rifle. Just fun to shoot, great to go out and target practice with, and very reliable. The M1 carbine, great little rifle. And as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more fun gun reviews and sensible survival. God bless America. Long live the Republic. And that was an M2 Select Fire M1 carbine. The M3 Japanese Defenders coming up.